Good morning and welcome back to BusinessAM. All right, let's therefore talk about other parts of the economy that are trending as we talk about it right now. Now, you do know, under the Big Four agenda, there's a big focus on food security. And in agriculture, therefore, which has been a long supporter of our GDP, dairy farming has to be on a bigger focus. Now, the biggest announcement lately in agriculture was when the new CS, Peter Munya, actually did announce that now farmers are going to sell their milk to new KCC at 33 shillings per litre. Now, that's a welcome note around the country that actually shows that now farmers' voices are getting heard for the first time. Good. But that doesn't mean that all the problems and where we want to get our dairy farming is really up to speed. This morning, for us to look into issues, dairy farming and agriculture in general in that end, we are joined by Mr. Gathii Alex. He is a dairy expert and he is the managing director, Tanolope Consulting Firm. Mr. Gathii, karibu sana Metropole TV.
Thank you, Bwana Simba.
All right, I just want us to start from there.
Yes.
Do you think that now farmers selling the milk at 33 shillings to new KCC is a big win for the dairy farmers in the country?
It's a positive indication of things probably to come.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's a knee-jerk reaction to a bigger problem.
Yes.
Yes.
What would you say it's a knee-jerk reaction? I mean, farmers have been crying about the pricing of milk to new KCC. Somebody comes in, solves it immediately.
Yes.
What would you tell me the knee-jerk reaction?
Siba, look at daily livestock. It's a sector that is raking in about 140 billion shillings in 1 year. Mm-hmm. Same as tea leaves. So tea sector. So it's a big sector and must be taken very seriously.
Yes.
There are three problems for the dairy sector in Kenya. It is the production cost is very high.
Okay.
There are several factors, probably if you have time we'll go through them.
Yes.
The quality of milk is a little bit wanting, for export market and also for local production and also for milk powder production.
Yes.
And the third one is the surplus management. There's a lot of milk glut within the first 4 months. 4 months you produce about 70% of the milk in Kenya. In Kenya we produce about 5.2 billion liters of milk.
Yes.
70% of that milk is produced within 4 months when there is plenty of fodder. So how do we manage that surplus? Is it school milk program? Is it that we produce milk powder for strategic food reserve?
Yes.
Or we can even export. And by the way, let me surprise you. Kenya is having a deficit in milk. We consume about 5.6 billion liters of milk. We produce 5.2. We have a deficit of about
400 million
400
liters,
to 500 million liters per year.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a sector that has contributed about 4% of the GDP, contributing 14% of the agricultural GDP.
Yes.
It's a key sector that does not requires the total overhaul and thinking. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So from where you stand as the MD Tanolope,
yes,
what are the main problems really that are affecting dairy farmers in the country? And I want us to start it from the costing of producing this milk.
Yes. I want to paint a grimmer picture of the sector that nobody, or at least very few people, are benefiting from this sector at the moment. It's not the producers, it's not the processors, it's not the marketers. Everybody is having issues. If you look, the farmer takes about 34% of what is brought in, but sometimes he even ends up spending more than that on production. Mm-hmm. He can't even break even.
Yes.
The processor takes about 34% of what is gotten. About 17 to 20% of what the processor gets goes to processing, or rather of the total amount. So his profit margin is between 12 and 17. If there are more inefficiencies, then the profit is not there.
Yes.
In the distribution, there is a lot of wastage and returns and recalls. So at the end of the day, you find that even the shopkeepers, the supermarkets and the chains are having losses. So unless we address the three issues I've talked about, which is the production cost very high, in fact one of the highest in the world, it's in Kenya, To produce 1 liter of milk is among the highest in the world.
Yes.
Then the quality of milk needs to be addressed. Low somatic cells,
Yes.
low bacterial count, aflatoxin, free from aflatoxins,
Yes.
free from antibiotics, free from chemical residue and even biological residues. These are the things that needs to be addressed. We need to think away from the box, not even throwing away the box, thinking away from the box and do a paradigm shift. And knowing that this sector is as equally important as tea sector, as I said, we need to think and think and think very well.
Let's have a really look at issues that actually go into that as well. Let's talk about even the availability of fodder.
Yes.
How would we start addressing the cost of animal feed in the country? Are we looking for subsidies as well from the government?
Nobody is looking for subsidies, but that does not mean the government cannot develop business models that can more or less look like subsidies.
Yes.
But a direct injection of subsidies, that is not what we are looking for. Like now, ADC has about 2 million acres of land. 55,000 acres is within North Rift and Nakuru, that is in Molo. About 30,000 acres is in Laikipia. Can we grow fodder of about 300,000 acres? We grow maize, make silage, make that maize silage available to the dairy cooperatives around the country.
Yes.
Is that too much to ask?
Another question that you're mentioning really a very good point now.
Yes.
When you're listening to the recent shuffles that President Uhuru Kenyatta was doing to his cabinet, he actually did introduce a new ministry that was already dead as well, the Ministry of Cooperatives. Is that a welcome note? And how strong are milk cooperatives, dairy cooperatives in this country?
It's a good move in the right direction because the Ministry of Cooperative was placed at the Ministry of Trade.
Yes.
To bring it back to agriculture is a move in the right direction. And probably he needs to streamline, because at the end of the day, the cooperative movement that was left by Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, if it was left vibrant, Kenya could be an industrialized economy. We could be talking about Singapore and all those other countries. That's what we could be at par. But at the moment, the cooperative movement was killed, including the dairy sector. Now it's trying to come up. And that is the only way that we can have an agricultural revolution in Africa, in Kenya for that matter. And for you to have industrialization, you must have agricultural revolution.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's therefore go down to talk about the quality of milk that we produce.
Yes.
What we stand in terms of our export opportunities,
yes,
and what is really killing our export opportunities. Are we also deeply into value addition of our milk? Just the other day, the president also did actually ask the treasury to release more money. So now all the surplus milk that we produce in the country can actually be turned into powder form and then reinjected back into the market when we have a lower production numbers.
Globally, Africa produces about 5% of the total milk in the world.
Yes.
30-40% of that milk is produced within the East African region, and more so the Kenyan market.
Yes.
So you can imagine where we place in the world. Kenya, it has one of the vibrant dairy sectors in Africa.
Pretty much.
The only problem with our milk is what I talked about, the 3 factors. The production cost per liter of milk is so high.
Yes.
Nobody is making profit. Very few people even. Number 2, the quality of our milk has some issues, and I talked about them. Somatic cells count is very high. In other jurisdictions, Israel, South Africa, you're talking about below 500,000 somatic cells.
When we talk about somatic cells, what do you really mean in that sense?
Somatic cells, these are cells within the milk that probably could indicate the infections like mastitis and all those other things. I don't want to get too technical.
Yes.
But that somatic cells is an indicator of the production, the good agricultural practices that milk was being produced.
Yes.
So when the high somatic cells, when you have milk with high somatic cells, you cannot make good powder. That milk is also not good for human consumption.
Yes.
It cannot be exported because the rest of the world is talking about, Israel has below 50,000 somatic cells. Something like aflatoxin. When you give maize that has rotten and has some mold, it has aflatoxins, which is a mycotoxin.
Yes.
Something like chemical residue. When you're milking and there's some chemicals, those milking jellies, and they fight their ways into the milk, that is not desirable.
Yes.
Something like antibiotics. When you inject a cow and you don't wait for the withdrawal period, You find that milk in the market, that again is a problem. So those are the competitiveness of our dairy sector.
Yes.
Yeah, the Kenyan dairy sector is not competitive enough to be able to export milk with our neighbors, like Nigeria here. Nigeria, they wanted to import powder from Kenya, but it was costing $40, 40 cents. And what they were getting from Europe, it was at 26 cents. Do you know Nigeria has 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings milk per year imports? Don't you think that is a lucrative market?
It is quite a lucrative market.
Why can't we produce?
We're actually missing on that.
Why can't we produce quality milk?
Yes.
If it means changing our production systems, maybe we go the kibbutz system.
Yes.
We bring the animals together. We produce milk together. Economies of scale. Yeah. Management is apt, and we are good to go.
Yes.
Yes.
I listen to you, and you're sort of painting a grim picture when it comes to the dairy sector in this country. What policies, when you sit and look at them and say, well, this needs to be changed, or this is long overdue, or we need to come up with a different policy addressing this area so we can therefore start unlocking the potential of the sector?
Siba, we have a tendency in Kenya of, for every problem, we look for a policy, we look for regulations, we look for act, we look for a bill. Time is long gone right now. Those bills and policies and acts, the countries like Botswana, they have just come to Kenya, picked all our policies and all our acts, and they are implementing, and they are doing very well.
Yes.
Rwanda is another case. I was there the other day. They have picked our policies and our acts and regulations, and they are implementing.
Yes.
Kenya is in just a way of every problem must have a regulation, must have a policy intervention, or a policy solution, or a review of an amendment. So, with due respect to lawyers or to the law fraternity in this country, every problem the lawyers must come in. Must that happen? Why can't we implement the policies that we have? We have the dairy master plan. We have the dairy regulations right now. We have the agricultural policy. We have the veterinary policy. We have the feedstuff livestock policy. We have the Standard Act that will ensure the farmers have quality dairy milk, they have quality inputs. What other law do we need in Kenya for us to ensure that we have dairy quality, good quality dairy milk? The inputs, the alkalicides, the dewormers, the mineral supplements, which we call chumvi.
Yes.
What else do we need in this country? The weakest link in this discussion is the enforcement of the existing laws.
Yes. I will take you back, therefore, when we talked about devolution, and then we said, well, this is the only way, therefore, that delivery of services is going to be very easy, therefore, for everybody who lives within that county, because we're not actually looking at it from a general overview. Do you believe that now the counties are actually doing their work and actually trying to bring up these dairy sectors that we're talking about this morning?
Kenya is a signatory to Malabo Declaration, to some extent Maputo Declaration, that it committed to it undertook to commit 10% of its general revenue or gross revenue to agriculture investments, direct investment. We are at 3.4%. Now, you are devolving this function called agriculture to the counties. You devolve a function, you devolve a function, but you don't devolve resources. So what do you expect the county governments to do?
Pretty much. And all of them are just looking at the farmers right now, isn't it?
Yes.
All right, you interact with these farmers, I know, and then every time now you get to talk to them about exactly what they can do, therefore, to improve the services, the services.
Yes.
How well educated is the Kenya dairy farmer? Do you find that there's a gap that exists between education and the final product, therefore, that we take into the market that eventually affects the general chain of the dairy sector?
The World Bank and the IMF, through their structural adjustment programs that were brought in the late 80s and 90s, withdrew the extension services from the farmers. That brought a very major technology gap. Or skills development or transfer of the skills. So without now the extension in the market or with the farmers are not enlightened of the new technologies or way to feed even their cows to produce more milk at the lowest cost possible. They are left at the mercies of some of the consultants like me. So they call me, how many people can afford me? Or the other consultants in the market. How many farmers can afford 10, 20, 30,000 just to call me to their farm? So there is a gap that is lacking at the moment. The skills transfer to the farmers. the extension services. I don't know what can be done. The government has frozen the employment, which we agree with it, because again, 1 trillion Kenya shilling is going to salaries, wages, and pension. Is that sustainable? Our budget is 3.2 trillion shillings, and 1 trillion shillings is going to salaries and pensions. Is that sustainable? So we need to think outside the box, and there has to be very strong political will to turn around the agricultural sector in Kenya.
Yes. So are you really saying that the only reason that we're not unlocking the potential of this sector is because, yes, we have policies that should actually be implemented, but in some way or another, the guys bestowed with this mandate, therefore see to these policies, are pretty much not doing much of it?
Siba, next time you call me, please ask me to come with all the policies. They'll fill all this table.
Yes.
Very excellent documents that are gathering dust on the shelves. Nobody is implementing them. But the lawyers and the lawyer fraternity and the policy making process, people are making money out of it with due respect. But nobody is implementing those policies. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, and by the way, implementation of the policies is not a function exclusively for the Ministry of Agriculture. Because, like, look at potatoes. There was the 50-kilo bag rule.
Yes, yes.
How can just an extension officer enforce that? There has to be the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Trade. I wish the government can form a multitask agency, like the way they are fighting corruption and terrorism, using everybody, so that they can be able to implement some of those regulations, yeah? And then we are able to make Kenyan agriculture vibrant.
Yes.
Yes.
We've come in, the president actually was looking very vibrant. He looked like a guy who's actually now starting to run the government right now, and his main focus was on agriculture.
Yes.
This is what IMF is telling us, World Bank is telling us that they expect the agriculture sector to post a 5.9% growth this year, which is actually in line with economic projections as well. If dairy farming is going to contribute to this 5.9%, from where you sit this morning, Mr. Gathii, do you think that we're actually going to achieve these numbers that we're talking about this morning, this 5.9%, with the picture that you have for the agriculture sector?
The economic growth rate is about 5.8.
Yes.
And by the way, you need to call me to discuss the growth rate and the economic development.
Yes.
Those are
totally two different things. Yes, yes.
The economic growth is 5.8%, which also the agricultural sector is projected to grow at 5.8%.
Yes.
With the floods, you can imagine how the post-harvest losses have been pegged at 40%.
Yes.
Right now, I know they could be heading towards 60%. With the locusts at the moment, which has cleared almost everything, with the high cost of living, again, and the high cost of inflation, I can tell you I'm skeptical about that.
You're skeptical?
I would want to be optimistic, but
yes.
I'm skeptical about
Everybody
that.
tells us to be optimistic.
Yes.
But from where you sit, you really don't see that is going to be possible.
Yes, yes.
And when Mr. Gathii,
yes.
That's how we start 2020. Guess what? We're going to call you back as we chat the end of Q1, and then we call you back, and then we can actually look at the developments in the dairy sector, and then after that we can see whether it's actually possible for us to get to the 5.9%.
Absolutely.
Isn't it? Thank you very much for coming this
welcome.
morning. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. That's exactly what it is that we had for you this morning from our agriculture. We're talking about the dairy sector as well. Now, if we look at exactly the way in which we're talking about the dairy sector, then you can actually see that the only development now that we've seen from the government is the new policy that farmers are going to sell at 33 shillings. The question being now is that the only problem? But as it turns out, there is just a lot that needs to be done. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiag. Good morning.